All right, here we go. Looks like Deborah is the first to join us on YouTube. Hey, Deborah. Good to see you. I'm sure we'll get a few more people as we're here. I know some of you are probably still going to work. You might be watching at work for all I know. And others are watching from home. I'm at home right now. My daughter's right over here, sitting quietly, so quietly, and holding our rabbit. Maybe our rabbit will come by to say hello later. It's hard to say. Anyway, I hope you all are doing well. Let's see. So today we're going to start a daily reading of the Crescent Stone. So we're going to do it Mondays through Thursdays. And on Fridays, I'm going to interview another young adult author. So we actually have this Friday and next Friday already lined up. I'm excited about both of them. This coming David Levine, who wrote a trilogy called the Arabella of Mars trilogy, which is, how do I describe this? It's like the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars stories meets the Patrick O'Brien Commodore of the Seas novels for young adults, which that might not make sense to you, but it's pretty amazing. So I'm pretty excited to have him with us on Friday, and we'll be giving away a copy of his book at that time as well. But so we'll do one chapter each day, Monday through Thursday. So today we'll do picture right there. Crescent Stone is my first young adult fantasy novel. It came out just a couple years ago. Book 2 is also out, The Heartwood Crown. And I'm writing as we speak, not this exact moment, but this morning, yesterday, writing the third book, The Story King, which comes out next summer. So I'm excited to be able to share this with all of you. I know a bunch of people are watching live. I see that my friends The Sims are on. Hello, good to see you. So glad to have you live. I know for sure there's a family in Russia that wanted me to do it at a time that was live for them, and I'm real sorry to say I wasn't able to make that time work. But hello to you, my friends in Russia. Yes, here we go. Oh, who else says? Oh, the Scales family is here from El Paso, Texas also. That's cool. Look, there they are. Yeah, there's the Sims. So glad to have you all here. And then here's the book, Crescent Stone. I put notes to myself in here of things I should remember to tell you. Oh yeah, I feel like I should mention in this time of sickness and other things that one of the key plot points of this book is that the main character has a terminal breathing illness. So if you're feeling stressed out about different things related to health, and this is going to be more aware of that. Hey, my daughter Micah is saying hello. Hi, Micah. And hey, Dr. Awesome, checking in. Always glad to see you. Yeah, so I think let's go ahead and get started. I'm glad to stick around for a few minutes after the end of the chapter to discuss any questions you might have, thoughts, comments. But we're going to be doing this every day, so plenty of time together. So here we go. Chapter 1, The Crescent Stone by Matt Michaelatis. That's me. I didn't introduce myself. I probably should have. This book is dedicated to Shasta, my good friend who passed away a few years ago. Here we go. Part 1. There must be something better. I know it in my heart. From the Griffin stairs. Chapter 1. The Garden Lady. The king's gardener spoke the secret language of all growing things. She knew the songs of the morning flowers and spoke the poems of the weeds. She spent long afternoons in conversation with the trees. From The Triumph of the Peasant King, a skim legend. The bench stood 20 feet away. Such a short distance, such an impossible one. Madeline clung to the trellis of ivy that bordered her mother's garden path as she tried to force air into her ruined lungs. Every gasp felt like pushing sludge through broken glass. It was late morning on a Sunday, and she'd taken her inhaler an hour before, much too quickly. She should have been in bed, flat on her back, not sitting, not standing, much less walking. But if the doctors were to be believed, it was one of the last spring Sundays she would ever see. Her chest and back hurt from the coughing. The sunlight caressed her face. She couldn't stand at the trellis forever, and the return path to the house was longer. A few steps set off the coughing again. She pushed her fist hard into her ribs. She had dislocated them, coughing, 3 days ago, and they still didn't feel right. 3 steps brought her to the maple tree, which crowded the path. Her vision dimmed and her knees softened. She slid down the trunk, and when the coughing fit passed, she dropped her head against the rough bark. There beside her, its shining green body hanging to the right of her face. It chirped 3 times, then zipped to her left, its small, dark eyes studying her before disappearing toward the pineapple sage. The citrusy fragrance of the roses hung heavy across this part of the path. She took little half-breaths, and it felt close to natural. The bees hummed as they visited the flowers. A squirrel hung off a sunflower by its hind legs, plucking seeds out of the wide circle of the flower's face with its forepaws. This garden never quite seemed to follow the seasons. Sunflowers blooming in spring instead of summer, roses year-round, frogs singing in the evenings no matter the weather. It was a near suburban lot. Madeline used to build fairy houses along the shore of the fountain when she was a kid, using barks, leaves, and flowers to make tiny homes for make-believe friends. Her mother had never cared for those little homes. She had planned the garden, a full acre of wandering paths, stone bridges, and small fountains. It was eclectic and a bit overgrown in places. Mr. Garcia had done the planting and did the upkeep too. Mom liked it a bit unkempt, and he worked to give it the impression of slight wildness. It didn't look manicured, but there weren't weeds either. The fairy houses, Mom had said, looked like someone had forgotten to clean up after doing yard work. Everything in its place, Mom always said. Then again, Mom also wanted her house to look lived in. That meant strange habits, like telling their housekeeper, Sophia, that they abandoned glass in the dishwasher. Once Madeline had come home and smelled fresh cookies, only to discover it was an air freshener her mother had bought from a realtor. To make it smell like home, Mom had said, seeming oblivious to the reality that she was indeed home and that actually baking cookies would have been simpler. A few more steps, Madeline decided, but halfway to the bench, a racking army of coughs marched across her chest. She touched her lips, then wiped the blood in the grass. With her eyes closed and the little half-breaths coming again, she counted to 12. When the jagged feeling in her chest passed, she lay flat and watched the clouds drifting in some high, distant wind. Air moved so easily forever, sneaking into the garden without. I think I was buffering for a second there. Sorry about that. I'm going to switch to a wired connection once I can get the requisite hardware. I don't have it right now, and it's hard to get things right now. Okay. It may have been a mistake sneaking into the garden without telling anyone, with no way to call for help. She had chosen the perfect moment. Mom and Sophia had gone upstairs, something about washing the curtains. Dad was at the golf course or work or both. Her phone sat inside, turned off. The constant texts from Darius were making her feel guilty, but she had made a decision, and it was final. He couldn't waste his life waiting for her. There wasn't a cure. He needed to live his life, and she needed to live what remained of hers. Birds chirped in the maple. The warmer air made it easier to breathe. Going outside in the winter had been nearly felt nice. She closed her eyes. The tree shaded her face, but her hands and feet baked in the sunshine. Last week, the doctor had said, if there are things you want to do, you should do them. He was trying to be encouraging, she knew that, but it sounded too much like enjoy your last spring. Her mom didn't think she should sit out in the backyard because she might catch cold, as if that would change anything now. And here Madeline was on her back, stranded and straining to breathe. So much for doing whatever she wanted. The hummingbird wheeled overhead. It zipped back and forth over her, then shot off again, chirping incessantly. I see her. I see her. Madeline struggled to prop herself on her elbow for the woman, wavering, but it sounded like an old woman, but there was no wavering in it, no sense of weakness. It sounded, in fact, almost musical, as if the woman had been a professional singer once upon a time and the music had never left her. Still, she was trespassing in their backyard. A small thrill of adrenaline coursed through Madeline. A woman made her way toward Madeline, hunched low, as if carrying a heavy load on her back. She wore a broad hat with pale violet flowers along the brim, and her gray hair stuck out like straws of an overworked broom. Her parched and dirty skirt trailed the ground, and she carried a canvas sack. Madeline couldn't imagine how she'd gotten in through the hedge that ran around. A man blurred at the edges, and she pressed hard against her chest. Don't get up, dear. Rest yourself. It's the hummingbird who's in such a hurry, but I saw you. Don't worry. I already saw. Does my mom know you're... Madeline couldn't finish the question. Of course not, the old woman said. She settled next to Madeline with a great deal of groaning. She looked at the house, her eyes sparkling, a smile tugging at the edges of her lips. Her face was weathered and wrinkled, but her eyes shone like black stones in a clear river. You shouldn't be here, Madeline said. My mom won't. She stopped to catch her breath. She won't like it. The old woman nodded thoughtfully, then smoothed her skirt. Mother, she reached into her sack and pulled out a small white button, crusted in dirt, then a recently unearthed bottle cap and a small roll of twine. I would like to borrow these. Borrow them? Madeline pushed her hand against her chest again, trying to get a deeper breath. I don't understand. They are yours, the woman said. She raised her hand. Don't deny it. I found them in your garden. The birds brought me the twine, and the squirrel mentioned the button, but I dug it out with my own hands. The bottle cap, well, I've had my eye on that for several seasons. Madeline tried to call her mother, but she couldn't shout loud enough. She coughed, and the old woman put a fleshy arm around her shoulders. My mom, Madeline managed between coughs. Jane, I'll give you 3 favors and 1 piece of advice. The hummingbird zipped in front of them again and chirped twice. The old woman made a shooing motion. I know what time it is. Go on with you. Maybe the old woman would go if Madeline gave her what she wanted, and it was only a few pieces of trash from the backyard. Take them, Madeline said. The woman beamed at her and collected the bits of junk, scooping them into her bag. Thank you, dear. Thank you. Thank you. And that's 3 thanks for 3 items, so all has been done proper. Madeline wheezed a you're welcome. She took a shallow breath. Do you think you could ask someone to come out for me? The old woman looked to the house. Not for the water. For one. Sorry, buffered again. She took the woman's hand. Uh-oh, now I've lost my place. Let's see. Do you think you could ask someone to come out for me? The old woman looked to the house again and her face crumpled. Not for the wide world, dear. For one of my favors? She took the woman's hand. I can't breathe. The flowers sent word of that, they did. That's why I came. But have they come to you? Have they offered you a bargain? Madeline gasped for a breath. What was wrong with this woman? Couldn't she see that Madeline couldn't breathe? The old woman stared at her with a steady gaze, waiting for an answer. Hoping the woman might help after she answered, Madeline shook her head. Who? The flowers? No, of course they haven't. Not yet. I can't get involved until then. The bright green leaves were waving in the branches. Clouds scudded in from the west, much too fast, covering the sun. She shivered and thought she could see the cloud of her breath when she exhaled, but it was too warm for that on this spring day. Call my mother, she said, or Sophia. The old woman's face appeared over her. No favors yet, my sweet seedling, but I can give you the advice now. Madeline closed her eyes. Okay. The old woman squeezed her hand and whispered in her ear, but Madeline could scarcely hear her over her own racking cough, and when she could breathe enough to roll on her side, the sun was shining brightly again, and the old woman was stepping into the hedge like a rabbit. She was gone. Her mother's cry of horror came from the direction of the house, and feet pounded along the garden path toward the shady space between the maple. Beneath the maple. And that's the end of chapter 1. Okay. Now, a couple things. Obviously, we'll do chapter 2 tomorrow, but I wanted to remind you of a couple things. One, The Crescent Stone by Natasha Saudek. I don't know how to pronounce Natasha's last name. I'm sorry, Natasha. She did the audio book, which is spectacular. It's really great. I think you'll enjoy it. So if you don't want to wait around for 9 weeks for me to read the whole book, you can pick up or you can get it on Oasis Audio, oasisaudio.com. Technical issues here. Well, we're going to be talking to David Levine about his Arabella of Mars trilogy. And then, of course, if you want to keep track of where we are and find the next video easily, you can like, comment, or subscribe on YouTube. And my daughters are laughing at me for using this YouTube language, or also on Facebook on my author page. This is where I'll be broadcasting there. Now, let's look at your comments. Any thoughts, questions, anything you want to say before we leave each other? I think I'm on like a 10-second delay from all of you, so I'll wait for a moment to make sure I see anything you might have to say. And if not, I will see you tomorrow. So, aha. Okay. She's on my mom's YouTube, I think. So, okay. And before I go, since we mentioned a rabbit right at the very end of that passage, we probably should introduce you to our rabbit who lives with us now. So here she comes, Kala. Oh, Tiffany says that her 10-year-old Zach really loves this series. I hope Zach is sitting there watching because he'll want to see this rabbit. Here she comes. This is Kala. Oh, it's okay, Kala. She's a little freaked out. It's her first time on the internet. Oh, come here, buddy. As you can see, she's rather large. She's a big bunny. Oh, I can't get her up there. There we go. Ho, ho, ho. Big bunny. I sound very cool as a robot. What are you saying, Beth? Is my voice really super thing? It's probably this room I'm in. Okay, we'll have to work on that. All right, my friends. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow. Yeah, big bunny. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. We are going to have some surprise guests, some prizes, and of course, on Friday, we'll have David here talking about the Arabella of Mars series. Okay, stay safe out there, stay healthy, and